it feels like you're trying to warn us about something, multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
If my estimation there is correct, what is the warning?
Much of what we take to be real is fictions. And the reason that fictions are so central in human history is because we control the planet, and rather than the chimpanzees or the elephants or any of the other animals, not because of some kind of individual genius that each of us has, but because we can cooperate much better than any other animal. We can cooperate in much larger numbers and also much more flexibly. And the reason we can do that is because we can create and believe in fictional stories. And we are manipulated by all these fictions, by all these stories. Again, stories are not bad. They are tools. As long as we use them to cooperate and to help each other, that's wonderful. People think that humans fight over the same things that wolves or chimpanzees fight about, that we fight about territory, that we fight about food. It sometimes happens, but most wars in history were not really about territory or food. But people have different mythologies, different stories in their minds, and they can't find a common story they can agree about. And this is at the root of most human conflicts. And being able to tell the difference between what is a fiction in our own mind and what is the reality, this is a crucial skill.
Right? So he knows what we know, John. Okay.
This is, sorry to say, this is the part that I heard him say before, where I 100% agree with him. He's identified this spot on.
He absolutely has, because and what he's venturing into areas there which are pretty much what so-called fact checkers do on the internet, right? They look at everything as a story, and if the story fits within the parameters of what is accepted, then they will allow the story to be presented or displayed or whatever. And another thing that you notice right here early on is the first appearance of something which he also likes to do, and that is to reduce human beings from sentient beings to animals, right? He's always saying, you'll hear him say this more times, the other animals, like humans, and the other animals like chimpanzees and elephants and whatever, right? So essentially what he's saying is that we're only a small evolutionary step ahead of chimpanzees, basically, right? So in a way, but he, like you say, he's right about this idea of the stories. This is how in the past information about history was given. It was an oral tradition to take for the elders, for example, in the Native American culture, to pass the information and knowledge of their culture via stories forward. And humans are creatures of storytelling. We all love a good story, right? But the problem is that he's relegated virtually all human past to this idea that they're just stories, and the stories of the past are basically fake news, and so basically the funny thing is, like, it's interesting because he's the one claiming stories are fake from the past are fake news, and therefore the reality that we have around us is perceived only through these filters of these stories. And yet, isn't that exactly what we're getting from Agenda 21? We're getting stories that are phony climate narratives, phony carbon agendas, right? Not to mention, what they call so-called truth and modern mainstream history books of past historical events that's been changed or altered or modified or cleansed or sanitized to fit into the modern narrative that we like, right? So this is why this is very dangerous, because what he's saying actually sounds very, very sensible.
It is sensible, but he's leaving out the most important part, Frank, is we are here, you, I, and so many in our community, to discover the truth. It's not a truth. It's not a subjective truth. It's not how you feel about it truth. There is a freaking truth.
Yes.
There is a fundamental, truth to all things. And we're here to discover it. And he's saying, well, basically it's all just stories and programs. So well, the old program wasn't so great, so let's bring in a new program. It's just going to be just as fictional, but for me and my peers up here, it's going to be better. And we're saying that we want the truth now. We're here. It's time to discover the truth, and that's what these people don't want at any cost.
Definitely not, right? So, before we move on, I wanted to put up a quote from one of his books. So, it gives us an idea of where he's coming from. And in this particular book, A Brief History of Mankind, he writes, why not go back to God's drawing board and design better sapiens? The abilities, needs, and desires of Homo sapiens have a genetic basis. And the sapiens genome is no more complex than that of voles and mice, right? The mouse genome contains 2.5 billion nucleobases, and the sapiens genome about 2.9 billion bases, meaning the latter is only 14% larger. So if genetic engineering can create genius mice, why not genius humans? If it can create a monogamous vole, then why not humans hardwired to remain faithful to their partners? Okay, so this is an example of his science populism, because I had to laugh because just the other day, courtesy of John Rappaport, I came across something that I thought was hilarious, because the idea of genetic engineering and genes themselves, okay, if you alone there, this is like the basis of his argument, that it's genetic and we can alter the genes and improve things. But the Genome Research magazine itself published in Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory Press recently the following: what is a gene, right? It says, as we've described above, our knowledge of genes has evolved greatly over the past century. While our understanding has grown, we also have uncovered an increasing number of problematic aspects with simple definitions. At this point, it's not clear what to do. In the extreme, we could declare the concept of the gene dead and try to come up with something completely new that fits all the data. However, that's going to be a waste of time and money, so it would be hard to do this with consistency. So we've made a tentative attempt here at a compromise, devising updates and patches for the existing definition of a gene, right? There you go. Big problem, alarm bells must be going off, because if you build your foundational belief structure around, as an atheist, around evolutionary principles that are building on this concept of a gene, and the more people study, the more they realize that gene theory is wrong, what to do?